UConn and Colorado. Ah, yes, the classic Big 12 rivalry. It's happening. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Dole from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. Thank you for making this show your first listen every single day. Today, we will cover, should the Big 12 add UConn? Whether they should or shouldn't, they're going to. I'll prove to you why. We'll also hit the best units in the Big 12 from receivers and quarterbacks and all that. Let's talk actual football because I know you love it. And week one could be a disaster. So many upsets set up the Big 12 could be in trouble. That is a conversation. We will do a collab later on with the 10-12 network. Very good Big 12 source. To start, UConn is coming to the Big 12. If you hit subscribe, by the way, I get to keep my job, and that would be nice. And UConn's coming to the Big 12 because Brett Yormark, the conference commissioner, is pitching that to the presidents who will vote, according to Yahoo Sports, on whether, Ross Dellinger, you know the name, on whether or not UConn will come to the league. So you go, okay, so it's not official. Buddy, hey, you and me, let's talk for a second. Brett Yormark has only been good. Like everything the guy's done with the Pac-12, the moves that he makes are ones that are solid enough that the conference presidents are not going to say no to whatever Brett Yormark pitches. Like, hey, yeah, you kind of nailed the whole Utah, Colorado, Arizona State thing. That worked out really well. If this is what you want, if UConn's what you want, if Gonzaga's what you want in basketball, then let's do it. Here's the weird part. 2026 is when this would happen. And we would also take UConn's baseball team. Like, the men's and women's basketball teams have combined for 16 national championships since 1999. I'll tell you why a little bit more of this move is going to make sense and be okay. You can go to the water cooler and make your friends impressed. But the weird part, baseball too? And we don't get, I think they have baseball. And we don't get football until 20. Like, football sucks. You've got to be better at football, man. To the point where Brett Yormark was like, yeah, we would love your world-renowned basketball team. We're not sniffing your football team until they are not nearly as bad as they are right now. We wouldn't take them until 2031. And also, they wouldn't get a complete revenue share because football's not here. So Oklahoma State is going to make more than UConn to compete in the Big 12. And in this scenario, where that whole school's football program is just not here, that makes a ton of sense, which makes even more sense for UConn to be here. They are, this is Dellinger, by the way, he writes this, they are 2,000 miles away from the Big 12 headquarters, 500 miles away from West Virginia, the closest Big 12 team. And the reason university presidents are going to vote yes on this is because you look at a school like UConn, okay, who makes, they're in the Big East. They're not getting a ton of money compared to Iowa State, who gets their share from ESPN and Fox and the College Football Playoff Committee, and you get this guy, like, that school is going to have more athletic revenue, a bigger budget. They're going to have a much improved athletic department from a money standpoint compared to UConn, who's in the Big East and not getting that. So it was always tough to look at UCF and see how profitable UCF was because they were in the American. So, of course, they're not even close to the poorest of the Big 12 schools. They weren't even close to TCU or Texas Tech or any of the Big 12 schools when they first got here. And obviously, you wouldn't be in those rankings because you're in a much smaller conference. For UConn, it's the same thing. But they are so darn profitable at the hoops thing, at the basketball thing. That is it. That's their staying power. They've won like 5 national championships in men's basketball. They just signed Dan Hurley to $1 billion. They literally beat out the Los Angeles Lakers to hire their basketball coach. There aren't a lot of Big 12 schools that could pony up and do that. UConn can. They make sense. There is not, I don't think there will be university presidents who look at this, even from BYU or Arizona or Colorado, who are far away and say, we don't want that. To Kansas, dude. The only sports that matter in expansion, the only sports that matter are football and basketball. And basketball just barely recently started to matter. That's it. Baseball, you can suck at baseball. We don't care. No one cares. They're not revenue sports. UConn is what Kansas was 10 years ago. No, they're not. Don't say that about my Kansas. UConn is what Colorado. Like, Colorado has not been good. They've got 2 winning seasons in football in the last 15 years. That's bad. And bad basketball, too. Like, they're just not making a ton of money off of the winning thing. Kansas wasn't making any money off of football. The money that came in was from the TV deals that the conference divvies out evenly amongst all of its members. That was the case for Colorado in the Pac-12, the case for Kansas in the Big 12. For UConn, they are in essence what Kansas has been. Really good at basketball. So profitable at basketball that football, you guys could just kind of hang out over there and have fun. As long as we have basketball, we're making money. That is UConn. That's what Kansas was. In a really messed up way. Like if we talk about schools that have more athletic potential right now or a better record in the last 10 years, the two sports that matter, basketball and football, Colorado has not been as good as UConn. They haven't. And the only reason they have a higher revenue is because they had the Pac-12 media deal. UConn with the Big 12 media deal and further negotiated media deals with Fox and NBC and everybody who wants good basketball. Now you can have a 3-game stretch that is Baylor, Houston, Kansas. That's 3, 4. UConn in basketball. Then what about Iowa State? What about BYU, who's spending $1 million? Texas Tech is good. Kansas State made the Elite Eight that one time. There are other schools here, too. I'm looking at all the list of the Big 12 schools. Cincinnati, yeah. West Virginia, sometimes. It's good. You just created the best basketball conference of all time. Let's just add Arizona. There you go. Of all time. This is silly how good basketball is in the Big 12. It's going to happen, too. The university presidents aren't going to tell Brett Yormark, no, he wants this, and he's going to get it. Coming up, the best units in the Big 12. Best position units on Locked On Big 12. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show brought to you by Ultimate College Football HC. I am sitting in my car, not driving. Somebody else is driving my car, and I am playing Locked On's newest sponsor, Ultimate College Football HC. You download this game with a simulation that gets you to step in the shoes of a head coach of a college football program, so you can go be the head coach of Texas Tech. From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and even calling the offense, you're responsible for the offensive plays. Your strategy will help determine the success of the team. Just download Ultimate College Football HC, completely free, no ads, 100% offline. You go to ultimate-cfb.com or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate College Football HC. Use code LOCKEDONCFB. Locked On CFB, all caps, for a bonus and a boost to your program as well. That is Locked On's newest sponsor, Ultimate College Football HC. Next on Locked On Big 12, let's talk with the 10-12 network folks about the best position groups in this conference.
Drake, as our new guest here for this segment, who do you think is the best running back 2-0 in the Big 12 this season?
Oh, funny you ask me, Philip, because I took notes, and I have 2 running backs. You've mentioned neither of these names, and I think they create the most dynamic running back room in the league, and they belong to the West Virginia Mountaineers. We go to Morgantown, West Virginia, where we say hello to the Big 12 leader last season with 7.7 yards per carry, 9th in rushing yards, while finding pay dirt on the ground 4 times. He is Jaheim White. And guess who's back there with him? CJ Donaldson. So if you're like, hey, this guy's fast, I'm not really into fast running backs. Well, wait a second. This guy's powerful. I'm into powerful running backs. I love what West Virginia is going to give us this season. I think that they are in a really good spot to shock people from a running back standpoint with a couple of, like, CJ Donaldson's 20 years old. And I love him. He was one of my favorite guys, most unsung guys in the Big 12 last season. And I think this year he's going to be a star. Jaheim White's a star. You want one guy to be fast, want one guy to be the big, bulky, burly guy. You got it. And West Virginia's got the best running back duo in the conference to me. They're going to be, how you say, good at running the football with a guy like Jaheim White, who was damn good, and CJ Donaldson, who had double-digit touchdowns.
Yeah. All right. Let's move to, this is the one that brought about because of the Wide Out 90 Light Discord conversation. Best wide receiver tight end trio. So this is the caveat of trio. And it is interesting to look at and say, like, hey, guys, like, we're talking about 3 players. Like, you could pick a duo and say, like, okay, we can have debate. Finding a situation when you have 2 really good wide receivers and a really good tight end, or something we don't really see outside of the NFL, like 2 really good tight ends and a wide receiver, like that's basically like Iowa. Not that you ever know because they can't pass the ball for squat. it is an interesting conversation to have of like who's that you're talking about now, like who's got the best receiving core, because you have to include tight end in this conversation.
Right. For me, give me 3 guys that I think could combine for 2,500 receiving yards this season, and they come from the Iowa State Cyclones. When you combine and this was something like Jaden Higgins walks in, transfers into Iowa State, and last year all like 17 yards short of 1,000 yards. He likely gets 1,000 this year. Rocco Beck was a true freshman quarterback who is going to be even better this season after having a pretty darn good development year in his true freshman campaign. Jalen Noel at Iowa State, same kind of 820 yards last year. If he takes another step, both those guys, all Big 12 honorable mention. So they could both easily be all Big 12 team guys at the end of the season. They're both going to make noise in the Big 12 this year. Now, the tight end conversation, I go back to, if we're talking about one guy that I believe is head over heels better than everybody else, it's Brant Kuithe. I think he at Utah is going to be a game changer in the Big 12, and so good that he elevates the Utah offense where I'm like, yeah, you know what, as long as that guy's in the mix, I want that. I want like Ted McMillan at Arizona. As long as that guy's in the mix, their unit is high on my list. Benjamin Brahmer's not that. He's not Brant Kuithe. But he is a guy who caught 352 yards at tight end last year on 28 passes at 6'7", a couple of touchdowns too. At 6'7", the ideal Iowa State tight end. Hey, first one in, last one to leave. Get the program guy. Those 3 combined at Iowa State with Rocco Beck, who is not the best quarterback in the Big 12. He's not a top 5 quarterback in a very good, deep quarterback conference, but he's good. And he gave the ball out to almost 2,000 yards to those 2 receivers. And for Brahmer, who was a freshman last year, could step into a larger role as well. I think if those 3 combined for 2,500 yards, I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Last one, quarterback. I said quarterback and wide receiver.
Yeah.
So, Drake, I'm going to let you go first. What's your pick here?
Because I think I know Noah Fafita's good. He might be a top 5 quarterback in the Big 12 this season. He was really good as a freshman last year at Arizona in a Pac-12 that is probably better. Last year was probably better than we usually give it credit for. The Pac-12 wasn't renowned the last 5 years in football, especially with USC sucking for a good portion of that. Last season, they were good. There were some solid teams. There was at least more parity. It kind of mirrored the Big 12 in that way. Like 8 teams were competitive.
It's good to go out on a high note.
Right. and they did. They're done. They don't exist anymore. Noah Fafita was one of the strongest quarterbacks in that conference. Now he moves to the Big 12. Electric arm, and he's got who I believe to be head over heels the best quarterback in the best wide receiver in the conference to pair with that quarterback in Noah Fafita in Ted McMillan. T-Mac will be a game-changing, eye-popping star in the Big 12. When you have a lineup like Shedeur Sanders, Heisman caliber, like the Big 12 does. Shedeur Sanders, Heisman caliber quarterback, to Ollie Gordon, Heisman caliber running back, to Ted McMillan, who is a wide receiver that could very well win the Blitnikoff this year. That is a stack. Like, there are some legit athletes in this league, and I believe that Ted McMillan is so much better than anybody else at wide receiver. And there are good ones. There are certainly good ones. And I'm not even, there are good athletes like a Travis Hunter who will play wide receiver this year in the Big 12. However, I think Ted McMillan is so good and so much better than anybody else that pair him with the dangerous arm of Noah Fafita. And that's my top duo in the Big 12. They come from Arizona, from the Pac-12 to this conference. It's Ted McMillan and Noah Fafita. Today's show is brought to you by a brand new Locked On sponsor, 5 Hour Energy, baby. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Use code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. 5 Hour Energy is where I like to sleep. Sometimes I like to sleep too much. So after lunch, I'm tackling a to-do list. Before a workout, get in shape, get motivated with 5 Hour Energy. Get that part of your lifestyle and take the energy boost with 5 Hour Energy to give you the feeling and the alertness that can get you to the gym, get you through the chores, get you watching sports, get you fired up. Zero sugar, portable size, convenient. 5 Hour Energy website has flavors like watermelon, tropical burst, grape, and more. On the site, you have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors. It's delivered right to your door. Go to 5hourenergy.com. That is the number 5hourenergy.com. Get some 5 Hour Energy product today. Use promo code LOCKEDON and CFB to receive 20% off. Only valid through September 30th. On one order, it cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. there could be some major upsets in the Big 12. Let's talk to the 10-12 network folks about that. I'm about to scream West Virginia so loud right now. Oh, just.
I set the table. I set the table for this.
Dun 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 dun. And everything's just kind of bum 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 bum. Here they come, the West Virginia Mountain, and then it's Penn State and West Virginia, and there's Neil Brown, just goofy Uncle Neil Brown on the sidelines. You just look at him like, what a.
The beard, the goatee, the facial hair.
He's got a little more swagger. There's I love the Neil Brown lore. There's some old clips of him at Troy where he's just a goofball, just a little like dude in music videos and stuff. And he was so fired. He was so fired last year going into the season. Like dead man walking. It was weekend at Bernie's. That's the guy who's kind of supposed to coach our football team, so we don't have to pay this buyout. And then he wins games. And now he brings a West Virginia team with dynamic running back duo. I think they're unsung. West Virginia's kind of always been that way. We didn't really talk too much about them. I remember going back to those Kansas State teams that were really good in the early Big 12 West Virginia days, and the Baylor teams. They got so much publicity. West Virginia's just the oh wow, cool, good for you guys. And Hudson Clement being in the wide receiver rooms, this guy who could be a star. And then you go Garrett Green, who's really good at football. And I think West Virginia over Penn State, because it's in Morgantown, is not that great. James Franklin, discipline. Guys will be ready, no doubt. But I'm going to convince why not? I'm the Big 12 guy. I'm going to convince myself that West Virginia is going to beat Penn State this weekend.
I mean, I've already said on the show, like I planted my flag. I planted my flag on Twitter weeks ago. I'm planning here. Like, I think this is going to happen. Andy, I'll let you go. Then I'll finish with one last note.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say Penn State, West Virginia, like that's the only one that I could realistically see an upset happening that I would consider to be an upset. Like Southern Illinois losing to BYU or Southern Illinois beating BYU. I don't know if I would necessarily call that an upset if BYU has the problems that a lot of people think that they're going to have. Like, it is in a BYU, lot of sense.
BYU is a 16.5 point favorite.
No, and I do,
which is really not. It's not a ton, honestly.
But I do understand that. Like a Vegas upset, it will be. But like if we're looking at this now, would it surprise people? No, not really. Like I have a hard time seeing anyone who would be that shocked. I think there would be people that would be legitimately shocked about West Virginia beating Penn State, and yet I don't think that they should be. And like you said, like I do think that this is a game that West Virginia is going to win because they're going to be at home. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to. They played Penn State really well last year, right? In a year that they were not supposed to be any good at all.
Yep.
And that was in Happy Valley. So bring that home with a team that has a lot of confidence, that is not dealing with the fact that their head coach is probably going to get fired at the first opportunity. This is a team that's going to be very confident, and I think they're going to kick their season off right that way.
Might I say, we had some disastrous early games in the Big 12 last year, from Miami of Ohio to South Alabama. There was a point week 4 where I was like, are we all bad? Do we all look around and just decide to be bad now? There is a world in which we see Southern Illinois beat BYU, Wyoming beat Arizona State.
There's the other one.
Houston lose to UNLV. Carleton State had a guy rush for 164 yards last year, and Baylor was 3-9. So, that's a top 20 FCS program. We could see South Dakota State beat Oklahoma State. Hello, South Alabama. We could also see North Dakota State beat Colorado. There is a way in which this is a disastrous weekend for the Big 12 when it comes to upsets, even at the FCS level.
No, yes. It's, again, I noted this. You go look at Bill Connolly's SP Plus rankings, like South Dakota State's like 41, North Dakota State's like 70 something. I think South Dakota State's either 1 or 2 spots ahead of Colorado in those rankings.
But I think that's my point. Like if you look at it, yes, it's a Vegas upset. But if you look at the relative, if you look at the relative strengths of the teams, like I honestly, with where Baylor was and where Tarleton State is, like I don't know that would necessarily be a huge upset like a lot of people think it would be. It would definitely be an upset. I think it would surprise a lot of people.
There's a difference between North Dakota State, South Dakota State as FCS teams and like top 25 Tarleton. Like I get it, but from a Vegas standpoint, yes, I think there is going to be a week 1 upset. I would hope that there's only one, and it's West Virginia over Penn State.
Yeah.
The Arizona State Wyoming one is like Arizona State's currently a 6.5 point favorite there.
And that might be the one where I'm like, I mean, we saw Wyoming last year beat Texas Tech. And
thank goodness this is not in Laramie. Some schools understand you don't, but
never. Never play a road game in Laramie. Don't do
ever.
it.
Nope.
No.
Oh,
just
but
don't.
Yeah, hosting.
Also, never play a road game at night in Reno. That sucks. That's horrible.
Many are saying.
Reno after dark. Scary, scary place. All right, this has been fun. I cannot wait. The season is here. The wait is over. I am thrilled.